McNeil, is that you? What's the matter? You look like you've seen a ghost.
We're done for, Grant. The oxygen reserve. It's gone. A meteor must have hit us. Smashed the cooling coils. The oxygen just boiled away.
Pull yourself together. Panicking won't help us. We need to assess the situation.
We have 20 days of air. Venus is 30 days away. There must be something we can do. Can't we change course? Jettison cargo? Anything?
I've run the numbers. We could reach Venus faster, but we'd have no fuel to slow down. We'd just hurtle past.
What about the spacesuits?
Not enough oxygen in the tanks. Just enough for emergency repairs. I'm going to contact Venus, but I need to think clearly. What are we going to tell them? The regenerator can't keep up. We'll run out of breathable air long before we reach Venus.
Breaking news this hour: a desperate fight for survival is unfolding millions of kilometers from Earth aboard the Venus-bound freighter, Star Queen. The ship has suffered a catastrophic oxygen leak, leaving the two-man crew with dwindling air supplies and a race against time. Captain Grant and Engineer McNeil were just weeks away from their destination when disaster struck. A suspected meteor strike ruptured the ship's cooling system, causing their liquid oxygen reserves to boil away into space. With only enough breathable air to last 20 days and Venus still 30 days away, the crew faces an impossible choice. Experts on Earth and Venus are working feverishly to find a solution. Rescue plans are being evaluated, but the vast distances involved pose a significant challenge. Even the fastest liner would require a complex and costly maneuver to reach the stricken vessel in time. In a desperate plea for help, Captain Grant has sent a message to Venus Control outlining their predicament and requesting assistance. Meanwhile, aboard the Star Queen, tensions are rising as the air grows thinner with each passing hour. Sources suggest that the crew may be forced to make a grim decision to ensure at least one of them survives. This is a developing story. We will continue to provide updates as they become available. Our thoughts are with the crew of the Star Queen as they face this desperate struggle for survival.
I will take that, thank you. Get yourself back to your bunk and stop wasting oxygen in space.
Why not? What else is there to do? We are all doomed anyway. Who is going to care?
We have 5 days left to make a decision. One of us can still make it if the other does the honorable thing. That slob does not think I notice he's been smoking and wasting more valuable oxygen. He does not deserve to be the one. Not only fast and painless, but most importantly, it is tasteless.
Grant, we need to talk about the obvious. There's only enough air for one of us to reach Venus.
It had crossed my mind.
Wouldn't it be more sensible if one of us decided to walk out of the airlock, say? Or to take some of that poison?
We must talk it over.
I was afraid he couldn't do it. It must have been a colossal job to break his orbit single-handed, and with the air as thick as it must be by now. How soon can we get to him?
It will take about an hour. He's still got quite a bit of eccentricity, but we can correct that.
Good. Signal the Leviathan and Titan that we can make contact and ask them to take off, will you? But I wouldn't drop any tips to your news commentator friends until we're safely locked.
We'd better board and bring the Queen down to circular speed ourselves before we call the other tugs. Otherwise, we'll be wasting a lot of fuel. She's still got a velocity excess of nearly 1 kilometer a second.
Good idea. Tell Leviathan and Titan to stand by, but not to blast until we give them the new orbit.
I wonder what he's feeling like now.
I can tell you. He's so pleased to be alive that he doesn't give a hoot about anything else.
Still, I'm not sure I'd like to have left my shipmate in space so that I could get home.
It's not the sort of thing that anyone would like to do. But you heard the broadcast? They'd talked it over calmly, all very civilized. It was the only sensible way.
Sensible, perhaps. But it's pretty horrible to let someone else sacrifice himself in such a cold-blooded way so that you can live.
Don't be a ruddy sentimentalist. I'll bet that if it happened to us, you'd push me out before I could even say my prayers.
Unless you did it to me first. Still, I don't think it's ever likely to happen to the Hercules. 5 days out of port's the longest we've ever been, isn't it? Talk about the romance of the spaceways.
I'd hoped better of you, Grant. This little attempt of yours to poison me, of course. As a matter of interest, when did you decide to kill me?
Only this morning.
I suppose I should get pretty mad about this whole business, but somehow I'm not. Maybe it's because I never had many illusions about human nature, and, of course, I saw it coming a long time ago.
You saw it coming?
Heavens, yes. You're too transparent to make a good criminal, I'm afraid. And now that your little plot's failed, it leaves us both in an embarrassing position, doesn't it? By rights, I should now work myself into a good temper, call Venus Central, and denounce you to the authorities. But it would be a rather pointless thing to do, and I've never been much good at losing my temper anyway. Of course, you'll say that's because I'm too lazy, but I don't think so. Oh, I know what you think about me. You've got me neatly classified in that orderly mind of yours, haven't you? I'm soft and self-indulgent. I haven't any moral courage, or any morals for that matter, and I don't give a damn for anyone but myself. Well, I'm not denying it. Maybe it's 90% true. But the odd 10% is mighty important, Grant.
Well, what do you intend to do now?
I would like to carry on our discussion where it was interrupted by the coffee.
That doesn't make sense. You've got something up your sleeve.
You're in no position to accuse me of plotting anything. To repeat my earlier remarks, I am suggesting that we decide which one of us shall take poison. Only we don't want any more unilateral decisions. Also, it will be the real thing this time. The stuff in here merely leaves a bad taste in the mouth.
You changed the poison!
Naturally. You may think you're a good actor, Grant, but frankly, from the balcony, I thought the performance stank. I could tell you were plotting something, probably before you knew it yourself. In the last few days, I've deloused the ship pretty thoroughly. Thinking of all the ways you might have done me in was quite amusing and helped to pass the time. The poison was so obvious that it was the first thing I fixed. But I rather overdid the danger signals and nearly gave myself away when I took the first sip. Salt doesn't go at all well with coffee. Also, I'd hoped for something more subtle. So far, I've found 15 infallible ways of murdering anyone aboard a spaceship. But I don't propose to describe them now.
Yet you're still willing to start all over again? And you'd do the honorable thing yourself if you lost?
I can see that you still don't believe me. It doesn't fit at all nicely into your tidy little picture, does it? But perhaps I can make you understand. It's really quite simple. I've enjoyed life, Grant, without many scruples or regrets. But the better part of it's over now, and I don't cling to what's left as desperately as you might imagine. Yet while I am alive, I'm rather particular about some things. It may surprise you to know that I've got any ideals at all, but I have, Grant. I've always tried to act like a civilized, rational being. I've not always succeeded. When I've failed, I've tried to redeem myself. I've never exactly liked you, Grant, but I've often admired you, and that's why I'm sorry it's come to this. I admired you most of all the day the ship was holed. I didn't behave very well then. Something happened that I thought was impossible. I've always been quite sure that I'd never lose my nerve, but, well, it was so sudden it knocked me over. Oh, yes, the business of the wines. I can see you're thinking about that. Well, that's one thing I don't regret. I said I'd always tried to act like a civilized man, and a civilized man should always know when to get drunk. But perhaps you wouldn't understand. Don't think I get a quixotic pleasure from turning the other cheek. Just consider it from the point of view of pure logic. After all, we've got to come to some agreement. Has it occurred to you that if only one of us survives without a covering message from the other, he'll have a very uncomfortable time explaining just what happened?
Yes, I suppose you're right. Well, let's get it over. There's a new pack of cards lying around somewhere.
I think we'd better speak to Venus first. Both of us. We want a complete agreement on record in case anyone asks awkward questions later.
So that's the whole story, is it?
Yes, that's all there was to it.
And I suppose Grant took it all quite calmly?
You heard his broadcast, didn't you? Wasn't that calm enough? Yes, Grant behaved very well. Very well indeed. It was a great pity.
All his life, he would hear whispers. Voices would be saying behind his back, "Isn't that the man who—" He did not care. For once in his life, at least, he had done something of which he could feel unashamed. Perhaps one day, his own pitiless self-analysis would strip bare the motives behind his actions, would whisper in his ear, "Altruism? Don't be a fool. You did it to bolster up your own good opinion of yourself, so much more important than anyone else's." But the perverse, maddening voices, which all his life had made nothing seem worthwhile, were silent for the moment, and he felt content. He had reached the calm at the center of the hurricane. While it lasted, he would enjoy it to the full.